I am going to be doing Promises Part 2 tonight, and I'm really excited to continue on with this series. I've been finding freedom myself, diving into the scriptures and diving into the understanding what promises are, and sometimes the broken promises and how to deal with healing with the broken promises, but also discovering new promises. And I do want to shout out to all our guys online. We noticed a lot more viewership this week and a lot of subscriptions. So I just wanted to put it up together for our online guys. We just wanted to say we noticed you, and we were overwhelmed by the response online. But hey, look, if you're in the Paul Macquarie area or you're someone that maybe hasn't been to church before, here at Hard House, there's always room for you. And you don't have to believe to belong, but you're allowed to come into this place and hopefully find a relationship with God. And that's always been our heart here, is that people can find God on a new and awesome new level. So tonight I'm doing part 2 of Broken Promises, and I'm breaking it down to 3 parts: the heartbreak, the healing, and the harvest of promises. And the first thing I wanted to just kick off with what I'm doing tonight, I was finished writing my message for just to speak to the church tonight and speak to the guys online, and God really dropped into my heart the absolute, beautiful thing of a bunch of random people from random walks of lives. Everyone's had different weeks this week, coming together to maybe discuss the topics that don't usually get discussed. One of the things I'm going to talk about tonight is healing and how we find healing through broken promises, but sometimes these things aren't talked about. Sometimes we don't address what's happening around us. And so I just wanted to break it down and say, look, tonight, give me some grace. I'm going to share this part with you, but believe it that someone will maybe discover something new for their lives, and I'm going to break it down. So the first thing I want to talk about tonight is heartbreak. With broken promises, when there's been times when people have let us down, when we've had things go wrong, when things have not worked out, we are left with this heartbreak. Now, I don't know the last time you dived within. I know that this week I got a bit emotional. I was like, God, I'm preaching this topic. I want to be real about it. I want to be real with the church about it. Expose my heartbreak. And I remember this going back to moments in my life where I realized that someone had let me down, someone had promised me something, someone had done something for me, but then later on retracted on the offer. And I discovered that I had a lot of built up heartbreak. And what had happened was I hadn't dealt with it. I haven't, focused on it. And I hadn't really kind of gone, God, what can you do with this heartbreak? I don't know if you're sitting here tonight and you're like, yeah, there's sometimes I haven't thought in a while of sometimes why I'm agitated or upset or, find life difficult. Sometimes we haven't addressed the heartbreak of a broken promise. And that's what we're doing tonight. We're going to address it. And I thought that there's 3 areas where we could be more self-aware of it or look into it, where we could avoid, further heartbreak or realize where heartbreak's gone wrong in our lives. So the first one I want to talk about is these 3 contracts where humans exchange broken promises without using the word promise. You with me? Great. The first one I realized is verbal promises. It's like sometimes we don't mean to overpromise, and I use the word here, overpromising. It's like sometimes we don't mean to tell somebody we can take care of that, or we can handle that, or we can fix that, and we end up not doing it. I mean, like even this holidays, Kirsty and I took our kids down to the beach, and Blazer's only just learning to swim, as some of you know. He's my 3-year-old. And Kirsty's like, I don't really want to go in the water. And so I'm like, Kirsty, I'm his dad. He's my son. It'll be all good. And she's looking at me and she's like, well, I just don't feel safe about him going in the water, and I'm not sure about it. There's big waves. I'm not sure about it. And I said, Kirsty, just relax. It's all good. He's right there. I'm right here. It's all good. He can have some fun. And so we're just playing there for about a good 15 minutes. And all of a sudden, a wave from the left side of the beach comes out of nowhere. I didn't know where it came from. Wiped Blazy off his legs, my 3-year-old son, and starts to drag him out to the Pacific Ocean. Listened in school. Just. And it was at that moment where I'm like, no, we're not up to the Kirsty was right part. It's coming. Any dad might relate to this. I was up to the part where I was like, it'll work itself out. He's going to get back up. He will be right. And I'm watching and I'm starting to panic a little bit more within inside. And Kirsty, I can feel her eyes burning my soul. And I'm going, come on, Blaze, you can do this. Come on, buddy. And I'm starting to get more nervous. And I'm like, but I've already kind of said this is going to be all good. Anyway, it got worse. Blaze kept going out. And he ended up sweeping right out. So I took my shirt off and ran out there like Baywatch, just real slow motion. And I jump in the water and I grab Blaze. I'm like, Blaze, you're all right? And he's like coughing up water and starfish. And he's like, yeah, I'm good. And I take him to the shore. And Kirsty looks at me and she's like, and I said, yeah, I did not expect that. I overpromised. You know, sometimes verbal contracts, we don't mean to do it. I didn't mean for Blaze to be swept out to the ocean. I genuinely thought, as his dad, I could keep my end of the bargain. You know, sometimes there's a physical contract that gets broken between humans. I know sometimes, you know, in relationships, there's people that have gone through relationship breakups, whether they're broken up with their partner or they've had a divorce. And these things called heartbreaks, and they cause this divide between people, different relationships, because at the end of the day, whether you promise to stay together or not, the foundation of a relationship is built up on promises. Sometimes in family situations, you know, physical breakdowns, is sometimes we forget to communicate with our family or tell them something we should have told them about, or just a bunch of things, and the family begins to break down. Sometimes maybe you're in this room and you've experienced a promise broken from your parents. One of the examples I thought here is that some of us might have gone to an award show, or we've had like a game, a soccer game or something, and our dad didn't show up when we were younger, or our mum didn't show up, or someone didn't show up to the thing that was special to us. Some of us even had those physical contracts where we thought, you know, the boss has been giving hints lately that I'm going to get a rise, or, you know, I've got this new job opportunity, and it all seems to be going that way, but eventually it doesn't end up that way. Now, though the word promise hasn't been used, we start to feel let down from broken promises. Get what I'm saying? I look back on my life and some situations at school where I was let down, and I didn't realize the effect it had on me as I grew up, because no one promised me, but I felt let down because someone didn't show up, or someone didn't do what they said they were going to do, or something didn't work out the way they thought it would. And I don't know if you're here tonight and you're thinking this, you're like, never really thought about it. I never really thought about what happened when my dad didn't show up to that. I never really thought about it when my parents divorced. I never really thought about that when the family broke down. I never really thought about the physical contracts that were broken in my life. You know, the last one here is the internal contracts. These are the contracts we make with ourselves. I promised myself I wouldn't do this. And one of the things I did recently is I said to Kirsty, that's it. This year, I'm going to quit eating chocolate and lollies as much as I can. I didn't want to fully give it I just said, as much as I can, I'm going to stop eating junk food. And I think by like week 2 into the year, Kirsty had gotten every box of Cadbury chocolate. You know, the favorite boxes that everyone hands out at Christmas? She had got like 40 of them and tipped them in the fridge in all the drawers. They're just all sitting there. Lollies, chocolate, they're all piled up there. And I had to have multiple nights at 11 p.m. at night arguing with the fridge, do not touch the chocolates in the door. I don't even know why she put them there. But guess what happened one night? I caved in. I was a little bit hungry. I got a little bit home late from a meeting, and I ate a few chocolates. And in the morning, I said, oh my gosh, I broke that promise within myself. And I felt a little bit bad about it. But I know that sometimes it can get a little bit more serious. Some of us might be facing an addiction right now. There's something we're struggling with. There's an addiction. There's something we're struggling with to try to fix in our lives. And we say to ourselves, I won't do this again. I won't do that again. I won't be part of that again. And we find ourselves back doing it again. You with me? And so all this leads to heartbreak. If we look within tonight, that's what I'm trying to do. If we look within and we identify our heartbreak, then maybe we can begin to see what God does with heartbreak. And when all these broken promises, all these things lead to heartbreak, this is what I believe God does. In Psalms 34:18, it says here, the Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those that have been crushed in spirit. Now, I'm probably stretching a little bit here, but I thought with this part of the series, this is important. Somehow, God, and what God does, is he finds himself seeking and searching those that are brokenhearted. He looks for those that have been crushed by spirit. He looks for those that have been let down. He looks for those that have been hurt. And I wanted to encourage you tonight that you might have thought the brokenness in your life actually pushes God away. But I'm here to say to you that brokenness in your life actually attracts God, and he wants to do something within your life. You know, a lot of times I thought because I'd been let down that people don't like me, or they don't respect me, or they don't want to do something for me. That doesn't mean God doesn't want to respect you or like you or want to do something for you. A lot of time we can feel rejected and we feel let down, so we think that maybe God can't use someone that's left down. But I wanted to tell you tonight, I'm talking to somebody, God actually is attracted to those that are let down because he's in the business of lifting up. God is fascinated. He's like, I'm looking for the brokenhearted. I'm looking for those that are crushed in spirit because I've got a promise for them. And that promise is that I could use their lives for something great. Now, someone needed to hear this because I know I needed to hear this. Things go wrong. Heartbreak happens. Things go bad. Things go south. Broken promises happen throughout our lives. And it leaves us crushed. It leaves us brokenhearted. But God said this to me this week. Those that are heartbroken, those that have been let down, those that are crushed, don't run from me. Come to me, and I will do something in your life. You may have been let down, and you may be heartbroken by broken promises, but our God lifts up because He's here to change the narrative. Now, I kind of like in part one talked about, we know it's hard to have broken promises. Tonight I want to really dive into how we can deal with it. It's how we deal with it. I'm believing that God gets involved with those that are broken. And He changes our sad story into a story of a Savior that saved us story and found us in heartbreak and brought us into what He was calling us to do. Which leads to my second point tonight, which is healing. And I believe God wants to heal everyone. I don't think it's just some people. I think that God, whether it's physical, mental, or spiritual, God's in the business of healing people, whether they're brokenhearted or not, whether they're, just turning up to church to see if He's real or not. He's in the business of healing people. And I've always been a believer. I've always believed this in my heart, that God can take any situation, whether it's bad or good, but mostly bad. He can take anything that's ever happened to you, and He can turn it into something good. Now, this is important. You've got to understand this because I believe that if we come in this place broken and we come here with disappointment and, someone's let us down or someone's broken our heart, that God doesn't reject that, but He actually accepts that. And He says, I can do something with that. And so it comes down to our response to the broken promises. And in Romans 8:28, it says here, and we know that in all things, God works for the good of those who love Him and have been called according to His purpose. Now, I'm putting my preacher cap on, maybe some of the beliefs tonight. People are dealing with heartbreak. I've just run down some things. People in the world have hurt. People in the world have been let down, whether it's from their spouse, their pastor, their family. We have established that things have broken and things have been broken in promises. But God's idea of this is not to reject those that are broken, but to bring close to those that are broken and finds a way for them to heal for the process of being broken. I believe God uses all things, everything. Now, this is going to be maybe a little bit hard to kind of accept, and for me it was. That every bad thing that's ever happened to you, or the letdown or the brokenness, God is somehow going to use that for something good. It's a message that because for me, I'm like, man, sometimes I just want to run away from my problems. God says, no, let me show you the good in your problems. And whether you believe it or not, whether you receive it or not, whether you're convinced that I'm even telling the truth or not, the reality is God takes everything that's ever happened and turns it into good. Kirsty, I was telling Kirsty my notes this week. She's like, man, some people have been through some really hard stuff. I know. And I still believe in my heart, God will turn it into something good. This is His promise. He has a promise for His purpose. It says here, according to His purpose, He will turn everything into something good. I'm here to tell you now, the one promise you can hang on to is that God has a promise for your not good day because He's here to turn it good. So there's two things I was like, God, well, how do I deal with this myself? How do I break it down to two practical things for our church to understand how to roll this out? And this is the two words He gave me. Receiving the purpose and being a dealer of healing. I don't know if we need to bleep that out because it's like dealing. Drug dealing, that's what I'm talking about. Receiving is as simple as this. When it comes to healing, every time someone lets us down, now, I want to speak to someone's heart. And I know it's hard. I just want to speak this to your heart. Every time someone has let you down, whether it's been recently or in the last 10 years or whenever the timeline is, whenever someone lets you down, don't use that as a weapon against that person. But go to God and pray for that person and speak life over that person Because I guarantee you in the letdown, you will discover purpose. I guarantee you that if you step back and go, you know what, so-and-so did let me down, they did break that promise. I guarantee if you step back and say, God, I'm going to speak life over that person. I'm going to pray that they are good health. I'm going to not be using that, well, they let me down, stuff them. But I'm actually going to say, God, what are you showing me in this letdown? Because I believe if God turns all good things to good, that sometimes things have happened to you so you can see the glory of God and how he's going to grow you. Everyone's like, stop preaching this part. I don't like this part. This is the truth. Sometimes stuff has happened to you and God's going to show you how good he is through what's happened. It's the receiving of a healing. I don't know about you, but sometimes people have let me down and I felt like weaponizing that against them. And the times that God softened my heart and said, you know what? I'm going to believe for that person. I'm going to believe for hope and prosperity and love for that person. I found healing. I was set free. I started to realize, man, I've got to be more aware because if that hurts me, then surely what I do to others will hurt them as well. I learned purpose in the brokenness. And the second one is a dealer of a healer. I say healer dealer. Someone that walks around and goes, I'm going to give healing. I'm going to allow healing to happen wherever I want. This is another one that set me free. Is if I promise someone something, rain, hail, or shine, I will fulfill that promise. No matter how I feel, no matter how it hurts, no matter how hard it is sometimes, I have an obligation to not break promises to others. Because I don't know the weight in which my broken promise can have on them. So I'm going to receive the promise when someone hurts me and lets me down and breaks the promise and promises they had my back and whatever we talked about last week. I'm going to pray for those people. I'm going to say, God, you're going to show me something and you're going to rise me up and you're going to grow me in what this letdown was. But then God also challenge me a little bit, make my word my bond, and make me someone that only says it if I mean it. My word is my bond. If I say I'm praying for you, then I better get home and get on the knees and pray for you. We have no idea what just saying I'm praying for you and not praying for that person means to them. If I say we should catch up, I'm not just saying it. I'm finding time in my diary to write down the date of when we're catching up. If I say that I'm going to do this for you, even if I don't feel like it later, I will still pull my life together and say, you know what? I'm going to show up because I have no idea the inherited hurt that person already has from letdown. I become a healer, dealer. Now, I know sometimes that we talked about in week 1, things change that we can't, stuff happens and it comes up in a way we have to break promises because we can't control the narrative. But everything I can control, I'm asking God, well, if I'm talking about broken promises, I don't want to be part of the problem. Come on tonight, someone's believing this at the heart. They know this. I'm going to invite someone over to dinner and I'm not going to just say it. I'm going to have them over for dinner. For some people, I'm going to say to them, I'm praying for your family. And when I get home, I'm going to be praying my heart out for that family. Can we be a people that believe and promise and not break them when we say them? Because if I read out the list before about, let's say little Timmy that was at the game and his dad never showed up, you have no idea that just showing up to something didn't hurt him even more. You have no idea of the story. You have no idea of the pain. So for me, I'm a healer dealer. And it's crazy because some of us just, and I do this, I'm preaching to myself tonight. We just say things to say them. But I'm asking us in part 2, can we be a church, and maybe those are discovering what God is, that if we say it, we mean it. I'm committed to this church no matter what happens. I mean it. I'm committed to my spouse no matter what happens. I mean it. I'm committed to my kids and my friends and my family no matter what. I'm committed. And this is how God begins to heal you from the inside out. Not because people won't let you down, but you try your hardest not to let others down. And so this really bizarre thing happens. Like I said, I'll read it to you one more time, then we'll go on to the last part. Romans says this, for we know that all things God works for the good of those that love him and are called according to his purpose. So strangely enough, Hard House, broken promises bring you purpose. People letting you down rises you up. That could be anyone. I could talk about even me. Maybe as a pastor, I could let you down. It's not about whether I let you down or not. It's what you do with how God softens your heart and how you react to the letdown. For me, it's the same. Kirsty could be wrong and I'm right. But how I react to the letdown, how I react to this is whether my purpose rises up or my purpose goes down. Purpose is forgiving those that have let me down, even if they don't deserve it, because I'll find purpose in it. Purpose is found in even others letting me down, instead of using it as a weapon and going, well, that's the person that always says that and never did. They had my back and they never showed up. Instead of that, I get on my hands and knees and I say, God, for whatever they're going through and for whatever they're dealing with and for whatever their pain is, I pray that your hand is over their lives tonight. There is healing found in the reaction of a broken promise. Strangely enough, because I don't know if anyone was hoping tonight I'd just preach and say, you know what? I know a solution to avoid broken promises. The reality is there's not. You're going to get let down within the first 10 minutes of leaving here, I'm sure. It's like even, speaking of KFC, even if they promise you your food's going to be here in 20 seconds, it ain't there in 20 seconds. It takes 10 minutes, maybe plus. You're parked in the parking bay. And then you're like, KFC, broken promises. It's how we deal with it. God, maybe they're busy tonight. Maybe there's a little bit going on. I'm going to pray that they've had a good day. Maybe that person that was meant to show up to my birthday party that didn't show up, maybe they had something going on that I'll never understand, but I'm just going to pray for them. It's how we react to broken promises. And then we trust that God will turn everything we touch into good. Everything. Come on, is anyone happy that I'm preaching this to them tonight? You are going to have broken promises and you're going to have letdowns and you're going to have failures in your life, but it's how you respond to those is where you will find healing, because God turns everything into good. Now, why this is so important, let me tell you. Thanks for asking. My last point tonight is the harvest. You're probably like, what do you mean by that? Well, I asked the same question because God's speaking to me about it, and I'm like, the harvest. It's funny because there's actually this Bible verse of Jesus talking about where your seeds land and promises, and he talks about all this sort of stuff. And I realized that if we don't, step one, identify the heartbreak. We have to identify the heartbreak. We have to be real. We just have to go, hey guys, I'm human and I've got heartbreak. Someone's let me down at one stage of my life. It's real. It's happening. I've got it. We've done that tonight. Part two is I'm not going to continue to bring heartbreak to others, and I'm going to learn how to deal with the heartbreak that's been upon me. And so this makes room for the harvest. Every promise has a plan. And I want to read you this verse, and then I'm going to wrap it up. But I want to read you this, and it says here in Luke 8:4-8. This is Jesus speaking to a bunch of people that wanted to listen to what he had to say. And it says here, why a large crowd was gathering, and people were coming to Jesus from town after town, he told this parable. A farmer went out to sow his seed, and he was scattering the seed, and some fell along the path, some were trampled on, and some were eaten by the birds. Some fell on rocky ground, and some came up, but they were withered and crushed by weeds. But some of the other seeds, so let me read that again. Some of the other seeds fell amongst thorns and grew and were choked by plants. But some still of the seeds fell on good soil. And they came up yielding a crop 100 times more than what was sown in the first place. And you're probably like, cool story. I don't understand what's got to do with broken promises. I just want to read you that last part again. Some seed, I'm going to read the whole verse again. Let me read the whole verse again, and I'm going to wrap it up. Why a large crowd was gathering, they were coming to Jesus, and they were there, and they were coming from all these places. Jesus told this parable. A farmer went out to sow some seeds, and he scattered the seeds. Some fell on a path and were trampled on. Some fell in front of the birds, and they were eaten up. Some fell on the rocky ground, and they didn't come up. And some of the plants killed them because the seeds fell amongst the thorns, and they were choked by the other plants. But some of the seeds fell, here's church, some of the seeds fell on good soil. And they came up yielding a crop 100 times more than what was sown. Now, if you want, I can read it a third time, but then you're like, well, just tell us the point. It's the farmer story. This is what I realized about God's promises. And I can talk about broken promises for the next 10 weeks if you want me to, but I realized something really good tonight. That God's got promises for our lives. He's got promises for everyone's lives in this room. He's got promises for those watching online. He's got promises for me. But if the seeds of his promise don't land on good soil, if he throws me a promise, here Sam, I've got a promise for you, and it doesn't land on good soil, because I'm broken and I'm upset with what happened yesterday, and I'm not good with what happened 10 years ago, and I'm broken rubble, I'm weeded out, I'm not happy with the brokenness of broken promises, and people have let me down, and I'm not in a good place, then when God rains his promise on me, it doesn't land on good soil. It's choked out. It's squashed. And some people have been in church, and some people have gone, they go, well, I don't know why God's promises aren't happening in my life. I just read it to you. Some are landing on concrete. God's spraying promises constantly on his people. Some are landing on the weeds. Some are landing in the gaps. And I believe tonight that if we change our soil, God will allow the promises that he had for us to be fulfilled. Because where the promises are thrown is where the seed lands. And if it's not a healthy place, then we will wonder if God's even real. Now it makes sense. So I was talking about heartbreak. Now it makes sense about, come on, I said this to Curse goes, you can't tell the church just to let go of some things because you don't know what some people have been through. I said, yeah, but when it comes to good soil, don't matter how many people I get advice from, and no matter how many churches I go to, it don't matter how many people I try to validate my hurt. If I don't find healing when the promises of God land on the rotten soil, ain't no crops popping up. Ain't no miracle happening. Ain't no promise being fulfilled. And then we start to go, well, God, you're breaking promises with us. Oh, God, you let us down. You let my marriage down. You let my family down. You let my kids down. And God's saying, no, I asked you to let it slide. I asked you to forgive. I asked you to create a good soil. So when I threw the seeds, when I threw my promises, I got plenty of them. I'm full of them. When I started throwing the seeds, I needed them to land in a place that would have moisture and grow and flourish and burst up so much that people go, how did he get so wealthy, so rich, so smart, so clever, so beautiful? How did he figure this out? And they go, well, I just had good soil. I don't know how God's promises work. So as the band comes tonight, before we go on to part 3 of Broken Promises and talk about how God's promises are going to rain on your life, have you got good soil? Because the seeds are coming. The promises of God, we talked about it, aren't a lie. When he says you will have a good life, he is promising a good life. When he says you've got eternity, he's promising eternity. When he says he's got favor on you, he has got favor on you. But sometimes we wonder why God has broken his promises. It's not a promise issue. It's a soil issue. And so I'm believing tonight, some people are going to be set free by this. This is the second week of New Year's. You're going to say, you know what? I'm going to start removing that concrete from my life. I'm going to start ripping. Yeah, you know what? Someone has let me down severely and deeply, and it really, really hurts. But in order to have good soil for God's promises, I'm going to let that go. Yes, I've been let down by loved ones. Yes, my parents should have been there. I'm talking about, I'm not testimonying tonight, I'm just saying, yes, my parents might have not been there. Sorry, yeah. I had to be careful because they're sitting in the room. But yes, there's this real depth of even addiction, where we're like, we promise we won't do that again, and we promise ourselves we won't do this again, and we end up doing it again. Yes, our dad didn't show up. Yes, our mum didn't show up. Yes, we are full of broken. Yes, maybe even our church, we felt like it let us down, but the problem is, it's not about the breakdown, because God will get close to the brokenhearted. It's where, our church will be really broken, so God gets in close. That's how it works. Broken people attract God. We've established that. But it's how we react to the brokenness that creates good soil. And so next week, I'm already got it ready. I'm talking about what God's promises will do for your life. But before we enter into that, we need to have good soil. Tonight, God, I'm believing people are going to let go maybe 10-year hurts. Maybe some people are going to let go 5-minute hurts. Maybe tonight we're going to go, you know what, God, I know you're raining seeds on me, and I know you're raining promises on me, and I know you've got something for my life, but because the soil is full of weeds and there's rocks and there's birds, I'm going to come to you with good soil and say, God, whatever you got to rain on me, let it rain on me. Amen?